time. It's our time, my friends. Time for millions of maturepreneurs, 55 plus, who are hashtag not done by a long shot, to revolutionize how we lead, do business, and innovate our world. I'm your host, Jeanette Anderson, and welcome to my conversations with fascinating people who would rather inspire than retire. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Maturepreneur podcast. I'm your hostess with the mostest, Jeanette Anderson, and today I'm with Michelle Passoff, who's calling in from Florida, but, was originally from New York, as you can kind of tell. I knew you were New York. When you said Florida, I was a little surprised because you look and sound like New York, Michelle. So welcome. I'm glad you're here. And today we're going to be talking about decluttering, but not just what you think it means. Decluttering 55 plus, making room for aging powerfully. So it's not just about taking care of, clothes and your pantry. It's really about the areas that can be confounding or confronting so that you can really straighten things out in your life and invigorate your lives to create a legacy, not a mess. So that sounds like a very good topic. Welcome, welcome. I'm glad to have you here to talk about this. So
Thank you. It's a
uh,
pleasure.
I'm going to give you her official bio. Then I'm going to ask her to tell us something we would never guess about her in a million years. And we're going to launch into a bit of Michelle's story and then some practical tips for you to apply in terms of decluttering. So, Michelle Passoff is the author of Lighten Up for Yourself from Clutter, Decluttering 55 Plus. Lighten Up Yourself from Clutter, Decluttering 55 Plus Wisdoms to create a legacy, not a mess, and is the host of the podcast Decluttering 55 Plus with Michelle Passoff. She speaks about getting things out of the way of productivity and leading a life that is deliberate and fulfilled, which is a very good thing to do. So let's talk a little bit about you and what would people be surprised to find out about you, Michelle?
I think they may be surprised to hear that I was actually partners in farms in Florida.
Oh,
And I
farm.
grew potatoes and sod and watermelon.
Oh, okay.
I don't even think a lot of my friends know that.
Okay, that's interesting. And was that a later in life thing, or was that back when you were on Madison Avenue?
But that was no, it was after Madison Avenue and before decluttering 55 plus. But
Oh,
it was an inherited business. So I took it over from the past generation and was partners with second generation farmers and supermarket owners and me.
okay, cool. All right. Well, and we're going to be talking about reinvention as well, because that's something that you've done time and time again. Tell us a little bit about your why. Why do you care about the work that you're doing? What's your purpose in life?
It's really, I started out with conventional clutter told in an unconventional way. And why did I get into that? I got into that because I didn't want to do what I was previously doing, which was I was a public relations consultant doing media in the media specialty with large public relations agencies in New York City. And I
Okay.
loved the media part, but I did not love um, when you begin to get higher up in the echelons of agency life in New York City, you have to really care about the profits of those large companies, and I didn't. So I wanted to find something new, and much to my surprise, I found that I was interested in transformation more than organization, and one of the vehicles to um, convey that to other people was actually through the physical stuff. While I'm talking about mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical stuff, physical you can actually get your hands on. So I started working with people on how to let go of their physical stuff as a path to the sublime.
Okay, that's a really lovely line and an interesting conversation for us to have because I have had major downsizing and decluttering process in my life because I sold my house and everything I own just over a decade ago, and I've been mobile ever since. And I got to tell you, it's still an interesting process, and all of the letting go of the physical, as you said, really did have a corresponding emotional and psychological impact. Felt a lot lighter, felt a lot less owned by my stuff, and eliminated a whole bunch of, keeping up with the Joneses stuff, all of a whole bunch of transformations that happened. So what for you was the moment you knew you weren't done? That you were reinventing. And I know you've gone through lots of reinventions, but let's talk about that transition into what you're doing now, the decluttering. What was the moment you knew you weren't done?
That I wasn't done with. Well, I had morphed from clutter consultant to helping people let go of everything in their house and their house. My husband and I launched an estate sale company, and we started letting go of everything for people. And it wasn't only when they pass away; it's when they move, they relocate, they change in one way or the other. Then they need to let go of everything that they have. And the moment I knew that was by accident. My housekeeper's husband died, and I let her do a yard sale in on my lawn because it was better located than her lawn. There was more traffic likely to buy her stuff, and she was talking to a friend of hers on our yard, and I overheard them talking, and I said, she shouldn't be talking to my housekeeper about what she's talking about. She should be talking to me. And she had an estate sale company, and they were morphing out of that estate sale company. I said we could do that, so we helped her, and once we helped her, we said we could do that, and she was morphing out of her business, so we stepped into it.
Okay. So, how long ago was that?
That was let's see, it's like 16 years ago.
Okay. So you
We
were,
did it for 16 years, and it was 16 years ago. I'm old by now.
okay. So you were somewhere in your 50s when you made that leap.
Oh, I think I was even, yes, I was in my late 50s, early 60s by then.
Wow.
I'm
Okay.
72 now, so I've had a lot of living.
Yeah, I hear you. So what keeps you going in all of this? What is it about reinventing and pivoting and doing new things? What keeps you going in all of this? Why? Why not just go play pickleball or whatever?
Go to the beach. Well, I don't know how to play pickleball, so
Okay.
that's a good thing. I think it's creativity. I enjoy, I'm an author of a book called Lighten Up, Free Yourself from Clutter. And when I did, I think it's a creative endeavor. This is the first book. I'm
Okay.
going to republish this with my third book. My second book is Decluttering 55 Plus Wisdoms to Create a Legacy, Not a Mess. And
Okay.
it's an illustrated book that you flip to any page and you put it on your desk, and
Okay.
you it prompts you to get things done. And
Okay.
I'm working on the third book, which will be out this year, called Decluttering 55 Plus, Make Room for Aging Powerfully. And I think what keeps me going is probably two things, and that is creativity for me
Mhm.
and contribution for others.
Right. Which is often a big motivator for a lot of people is that contribution piece. We want to matter. We want to make a difference. We want to be able to bring our wisdom and our expertise. So let's talk about your subject matter. In terms of decluttering, tell me what you mean by that, because it's beyond just getting rid of, like you said, clothes and cleaning up the pantry. What is decluttering about for you?
Well, I call it transformation, not organization. It's very practical. I mean, when you're talking about my conventional clutter work and what I used to consult in, I would go in, take a look around, see where the mess is, and pick a place to start. But my first question for people was always, what are you making room for? Because I have a premise that if you let go with an intention in your life in mind, watch and see what happens in the empty space that you create. What comes into the empty space you create is going to be something which you will clearly be able to accept or deny. You'll be able to vote. I don't want that, or I do want that. And usually you're going to get more, not less, of what you want in your life if you have nothing in the way. So I would approach papers and clothes and stuff that you have in your attic or basement in a very conventional way, but with a different purpose. And the
Right.
purpose would be to actually boost your productivity, be able to move and manage the road ahead without obstructions, and to know clearly, more clearly, what your intent is that with that.
Well, I really like your notion of what are you making room for? Because the thing is, if we don't have an intention about that, then what ends up happening is the default of bringing in more clutter to fill up the vacuum. That's why we have clutter in the first place, is most of
Well,
us.
it will happen. I'll let everybody off the hook right off out of the chute. There is no end to clutter. So the goal of this is to not have, no clutter forever. Forget it. If you're human, you have clutter, and when you're on your way to the grave, you either they pack it in your casket, or you leave it behind. But there is no end to clutter. So that's not the goal. The goal is to keep making room, to keep moving forward, because I think I spoke with somebody on my podcast, Decluttering 55 Plus with Michelle Passoff, just the other day, and he was a fitness expert. And he said, you're doing one thing or another. You're either exercising or you're deteriorating. So I encourage people to keep um, exercising your brain, exercising your heart, exercising your muscles, whatever it is, keep moving and stay young by doing so.
I think that's a really interesting perspective and very clear. You're either exercising or you're deteriorating, and you're either adding to the clutter or you're taking away from it. It tends not to be neutral. Neutral. When I sold my house and everything I own about 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago now, it was a process of two really big, year apart, big garage sales. One was 1,200 and the other was $1,400. And I only had five items over $10 in both of them. The rest were all a dollar or less. So think about it in terms of the number.
People would be surprised that not I tell a client, if you get rid of all the stuff before I come to do your estate sale, I'm not doing your estate sale, because there really is a balance. Those Don't overlook those dollar sales, because they add up just as much as the big items. So
And then think about it, and just in terms of the number of objects, that's a lot of stuff. A lot of CDs, a lot of books, a lot of clothes, a lot of everything. So what are some tips that people can apply to help them declutter physically, emotionally, mentally? So let's do one that's physical about decluttering right now in your
okay,
home.
the physical is, first of all, you have to start. Yay! You have to start somewhere. So, and I would set aside not 1 hour, not 15 minutes. I would do no less than 2 hours, especially for a mature audience. I'm a little bit more lenient, but if not under 2 hours, because it's amazing how fast time flies when you're having a good time letting go of your stuff. So I would leave some time to make progress in every time, and schedule regular clutter cleaning sessions with yourself. Do it once a week, do it twice a week. Don't overexhaust yourself, but be strict. Put it in your calendar, and if it says start at 2 o'clock, end at 4 o'clock, you do that. You exercise that discipline muscle in order to keep moving ahead and getting it reliably done, to get it done reliably.
Mm,
Done being, there is such thing as a ground zero. There is a place you'll get to where everything is there because you put it there. And certainly, once again, the mail is going to come in, and once again, you're going to buy some things, and once again, you're going to go up a size or down a size and have to change those things. So it's a lifelong practice that you want to become accustomed to by setting a start and finish time and getting that rigor in to keep your place free from clutter.
mm.
Now
I
that's the conventional clutter. Then, of course, with decluttering 55 plus, I call it next level clutter, which are areas of life that you're confused or confounded by, and you want to gain clarity and get resources. A lot of times we just don't know where to go or what to do and how to do it. And we have to start talking to one another to get resources rather than sweep it under the table to put off another day or forever. You don't want to put it off forever because then you're going to leave your stuff to somebody else, and that's not what you, it's not preferable. Let's put it that way. People do it day in, day out, but it's not preferable.
Yeah, not for you and certainly not for them. Having had to clean up after people who have died, my mom and so forth, it's a big job. And so be kind to your family. Don't leave them with all of that. Declutter now, but ahead of time. And
My mother, a lot of people ask me, "Oh, did you come from a cluttered background and then you recovered?" And the answer to that is no. Actually, I grew up in a glass house. My father built a house out of a magazine that he saw because we needed a bigger one because
yeah,
we had 5 kids.
yeah.
And he built a house on top of a hill that was like a lodge. It was all glass. And my mother wasn't really strict about, oh, clean up, clean up, clean up, but she was naturally just clutter free. So I didn't grow up in a clutter-free environment, and I wasn't the opposite of her. It was just the way that I was. So that wasn't my motivation for, cleaning clutter.
Well, and I like what you say about it is a lifelong practice. It's not a once and done, and it is a way of thinking about things as well. And I know for myself, when I got rid of all of that stuff, I mean, my biggest grief was around, surprisingly to me, anyways, of plants. Letting go of my plants was the hardest thing for me when I sold my
Oh,
house.
well,
It wasn't my probably over 300 books. It wasn't my 300 CDs. Like I had 8 bookcases full of books, and I love me some books, and I love music, and I love my arts and crafts, and I had a ton of everything. It wasn't all that. It was my big, beautiful plants. And in fact, I was thinking about selling and moving into a mobile lifestyle, and I burst into tears. But my plants, I don't want to give up my plants.
uh,
And then I paused and I thought about it and I went, really, you can't have your ideal life because of a ficus? Really?
yeah.
That's what's going to stop you? I'm pretty sure there's plants in other places. So I had to really look at what was it that was had me hooked? What was I associating safety with? What was my home about for me? Because like you said, it's a transformational journey, not just about organization. It's really,
Right. You're living, your decluttering was giving up your stationary lifestyle for a mobile lifestyle. And that's a bigger letting go than any plan.
yeah,
That's a big letting go to say, change. Change is an adventure rather than one of the first things in my next level clutter conversation that I encourage people to give up are beliefs they have that are in the way of where they want to head. If you have a belief, I'll never be able to live without my plants, then you're not going to that mobile home where, there is no sunlight or whatever the reason.
yeah,
You can't keep a plant in a mobile home, not maybe the big ones.
yeah.
So that's going to prevent you from change. That's the whole thing. You have to change your belief. No, I'm trading up. When I met my husband, he came down to Florida from with me from New York, where we lived, and um, I was coming down here to lead a class and a lecture, and he said, "Wow, this is nice. Why don't we live here?" And I was like, "Listen, don't come into my life and try to change it. I'm a New Yorker and I'm going to stay a New Yorker, but I'm a cold New Yorker, so maybe I should think about changing." And we moved to Florida, so that was a really big shift. I mean, you get kind of snobby about New York City when you live there, and I thought, "Oh God, but I love it here. I have my country house and my city house all rolled into one. I'm 2 blocks from the bay and 9 miles from the Gulf. So I get my weekend thrills. And then I have plenty of theater and plenty of museums in the city of St. Petersburg. So I'm happy with that, it turns out. And I've lived here, more years than I hate to advertise. But, change is an adventure. And so that belief, if you need to lose weight because it's the healthy thing to do, not the vain thing to do, um, and you have to give up those pounds, you have to give up the thought, I'm not going to go through that again. How many diets have I been on? It'll never work. You have to keep at it. Like keep at it. It's not over till it's over. So keep on keeping on. That's what I say.
It's a good motto in general. I think the Oh, I had a point about that. Oh, the letting go of stuff is also about letting go of our image of who we are, right? And our society really rewards stuff. You got to have stuff as status symbols and to define you and so forth. But you're right, it's a lot about shifting beliefs.
Well, the
I
way that I look at it, a diamond doesn't take up much space.
that's a good idea way
No,
to look at
that's
it.
what I
Yep.
tell my a diamond doesn't take up much space, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Um,
Yeah.
so you can you can there's
Adjust your thinking.
richness in more than material stuff. The
Yeah.
richness is in the quality of your life, the excellence of your health. So what I talk about in decluttering 55 plus are as next level clutter is your health, your fitness, what you eat, memoir writing. You want to leave that legacy and not a mess.
Mhm.
Um, relationships are more important than even what you eat and if you exercise to your longevity.
Mhm.
So I talk about doing a reset of all your relationships, see where you can heal them, see where you have to let go, making new friends, talk about new horizons. You're being healthy, deciding where you're going to live after retirement, what are you going to do after retirement, what do you know 65% of at least Americans don't have their wills done when they die? So it's too late. But, taking care of, financial matters that may be unpleasant or legal matters that may be unpleasant. And last but not least, having a say in your final goodbyes, like pre-arranging and pre-planning your final arrangements. So those are the clutter next level clutter categories that I address both in my book and in uh, my podcast. And I interview authors, authorities, experts, geeks, and everyday people about all of those categories. So we're always talking about things that will improve the quality of your life. And that is from conventional clutter to the next level clutter. It's all about the quality of your life.
Right.
And I'm not a minimalist. I'm uh, just practical that if you get obstructions out of the way, that you'll have a better life.
Yep, and I can attest to that from firsthand experience, having lived mobile for the last year. I still feel like I have too much clutter, even though everything I own literally will fit in a 5 by 10 storage unit. But I still feel like I have too much stuff. So
Well,
I,
maybe you have to change your mind about that. You have to give yourself credit where credit is due and say, you know what, I'm living as minimal as you can without being I say without being a monk, a nude monk on a mountaintop.
yeah,
You're not a nude monk on a mountaintop, so you got stuff and you have to accept that and you need some stuff. But
some stuff,
I just
a lot.
realized yesterday that I had too many books. Um, and I started there's no end. So I started decluttering books. And the funny thing was I put a bag of books to go to in my car to go to the charity shop to drop it off on the way to a picnic for my alumni club. And it turns out that I didn't have time to drop them off. So I went to my alumni club. And what do you know? One of my alumni fellows, he works for the charity shop. So he took my books.
That's
So I killed two birds with one stone. So when you have your minds going in a certain direction with no obstructions in the way, you will have miracles that show up. And that was a miracle. I didn't even have to go to the charity shop. There he was. Took it
and
right off my hand.
yeah, clearing obstructions, not just physical clutter, although that helps as well, but the mental, emotional, spiritual clutter that gets in our way, then it makes room for the new to come in. So I have a few little quick questions for you before we wrap up here. You
Great.
gave us one tip in terms of clutter, never going to end. Is there any other tips that you want to give us around clutter, and transforming our experience of that?
Yes, have fun. Make up a reason that you're doing it that is compelling for you. I had somebody who wanted a new relationship. We cleaned her closet and she met the man of her dreams. Now, it may seem disconnected, but you never know what you're going to find in your clutter, and it may have nothing to do with your stuff.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. Okay. So more of that, focus on what you do want to intentionally bring in. And speaking of which, I want to just briefly tell you that the journey of clarity is unique for each of you, but it always starts with that single step. So if you're ready to find out your own first step, and get concrete plans for what's next, I designed a 2-day experience called the Clarity Compass Workshop to do just that. So if you want to clarify your vision for the future, for your next 20, 30, 40 years, your purpose, what is your purpose now? And how do you live into that? And then what are those next steps for you to move forward in creating a business, creating income, creating a nonprofit, your legacy project, your mobile lifestyle, whatever it is, we can figure out how to get you started on that. So you can learn more at maturepreneur.world. Maturepreneur, like yeah, entrepreneur.world. So go check that out. Sign up for the Clarity Compass workshop. Let's get you clear and moving in terms of vision and purpose. And you can reach out to Michelle to talk to her about clearing all the other stuff. So, Michelle, how do people find you? Where's the best
Yes,
way to reach out?
if you go to www.decluttering55plus.com, decluttering55plus.com, click on the Let's Connect button, send me a note, and I'll be in touch with you about the podcast, Decluttering 55 Plus with Michelle Passoff on YouTube and radio, radio. See, I'm old fashioned on
Podcast.
audio platforms.
Yeah.
And anytime I'm speaking or doing anything special that you need to know about, we'll be in touch. We want to build the communities so that we can be strong, stay strong, and leave that legacy.
Perfect. All right. So, a couple of quick questions here for you, and then we'll wrap up. What's something about reinvention no one tells you?
Um, hmm. Reinvention is inevitable.
Mm,
I think that life is going to take its twists and turns, so don't be prepared for it to always stay the same.
Okay, great. What did you have to unlearn after 55?
You have to, for me, I didn't get married until I was 50. And I had to learn to share my life. And what could be better than that? I mean, but I don't think you have to be married to somebody for 100 years. So I was okay with that. And I've had a wonderful marriage since then. So just let go for what's next.
Oh, that's a good one. Okay, what's one belief that held you back the longest in your life?
Probably that nobody's listening to me. It's
Mm,
really hard to be an author if nobody's listening to you. It's hard to be a broadcaster, a podcaster if nobody's listening to you. So I was like, nobody's listening to me. And yet maybe that's why I became a writer and a speaker and a
you
share.
say, well, that's one way to get them to listen is to become an
Yeah, one
author and
way to
a
get them
podcast.
listen, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, give that up and say, I'm loved, I love you, and we listen to each other.
Beautiful. All right. What would you say to someone who thinks that it's too late? Too late to reinvent, too late to have what they want, be who they want.
Oh, don't have, maybe not to leave it to your opinion, get the opinions of other. Maybe it is too late to, like I used to do cartwheels and tinsikas and those kinds of sports, and it's too late for me to do that now. I don't want to do that now. Maybe you don't want to. So it's okay. Maybe it's okay to be too late for some things, but never stay healthy mostly as the foundation for anything is possible. You can always learn new things. Take it on. Imagine the unimaginable can happen. Anything's possible.
Love that. And what's one final piece of advice you want to leave folks with? Although that was a really good one, but what's one final piece of advice you want to leave them with?
Well, I would say your relationships. Take care of your relationships. Really go back to some of the people who you might have dropped out and reconnect with them. If that's not possible, don't think I should, I could, I woulda. If it's over, it's over. Or if somebody passes away, grieve by all means, but know that there's a next chapter. And don't be afraid of making new friends. You can be any age and make new friends. No, at the age of 70, you're not going to have friends for 50 years,
Yeah.
new friends for 50 years, but you can always have new friends.
Yeah.
So relate.
Awesome. All right. And that after that mic drop comment, I will leave it there. It is time, my friends, time for you to be the difference that only you can be. Because if not now, then when? Have a great week. Thank you for listening. I'd love it if you left a comment and subscribed. And I encourage you to apply one aha from this interview right away so you can turn your wisdom into wealth and your contribution into positive change. Bye for now.